talking about the coming Antichrist. Now, normally when I explain the book of Revelation verse by verse, it's in a Bible study on Thursday night where I can go into more detail, I can answer your questions. And so on Sunday morning, I can't quite go as deep. So what I do is I do part 3, part 4 of what I think needs more detail. So far in Revelation chapter 13, we have a man called the Beast in verses 1 to 10. And he is known as the Antichrist. He is going to be killed and be resurrected from the dead, come back to life. The whole earth is going to be amazed. He will become a one-world dictator for 42 months, says Revelation chapter 13. And he will be given authority over every tribe, people, nation, and tongue for 42 months. That's 3.5 years. So the last half of this tribulation period that's coming, the Antichrist is going to rule the earth. He's going to go into the temple in Israel that will be rebuilt and demand to be worshipped as God. He is going to have a partner that we started to look at last week. Verse 11 begins a section about a second beast. And we're going to find out that this second beast is a very religious leader. He is going to be called the false prophet. And so in Revelation 12 and 13, we have the unholy trinity, or as some call it, the satanic trinity. Satan, Antichrist, and the false prophet. Now, what's going to happen when the false prophet comes? He is going to force everyone to receive a mark on his right hand or on his forehead. And without this mark, people will not be able to buy or sell anything. So today, we have the technology to make purchases without cash. We are moving towards a cashless society. Everything is moving towards digital. So, back in the 1800s, in the days of the Western, you'd go into a general store, you'd make purchases, and you could sometimes ask the owner, can you put that on my account? And it was some sort of charge system that would be paid at a later date. Today, you put things on a credit card or a debit card. I read an article this morning called The Death of Cash. And the closing page had how we have progressed from general store to credit card to digital readouts to making payments with your phone, etc. So we need to look at the text. First of all, let me give you the big picture, or modern word would be zoom out. The Bible again talks about a future tribulation period where God is going to pour out his wrath, his anger, and his judgment on the whole earth. What I am telling you is never going to be mentioned in most churches in this country, because we don't talk about things that are uncomfortable. We don't talk about the anger of God and the judgment of God, and God forbid you bring up the doctrine of hell. That is unloving today. Well, that's what the culture says, but that's not what the Bible says. The Bible says there's going to be a future time of God's wrath and judgment upon unbelievers of the earth. It is also going to be a time of Satan's wrath upon the earth that we already looked at in chapter 12, where Satan was finally kicked out of heaven during the tribulation period. And it says, "Woe unto those on the earth because of the anger or the wrath of the devil, for he now knows that he only has a short time." And if you want to read in detail what is going to happen during this 7-year period, much of that description is in Revelation chapter 6 through chapter 19. Jesus said, "For then there will be a great tribulation, such as not occurred since the beginning of the world until now, nor ever will. And unless those days have been cut short, no life would have been saved, but for the sake of the elect, those days will be cut short." Matthew 24. We discussed in the last few weeks that there is coming a one world government. Now, I had to modify this slide and put the word global in there because that's the primary word that we use today. You're not going to hear too much about one world. You're going to hear the word global. That's going to be your clicker. That's going to remind you. There's going to be a one world government. And you say, how is that possible? Well, during COVID, they were having discussions about forming a one world government to establish the rules about the inoculations and how to deal with COVID, because it was a global dilemma. So why not form maybe just a temporary world government so we can help everybody on the globe? Because today, one nation affects another nation. The global economy, the pollution and climate. A lot of pollution is going up from Russia, from other nations, and it ends up coming over here because the earth rotates. So we're trying to lessen the detrimental effects of pollution, which is okay. But today I want to address the topic of the mark of the beast. This is one of the topics that drew me to Christ to become a true Christian when my spirit-filled, Bible-believing co-worker shared the Bible with me. And he spent time with me before work, after work, during the coffee break, sometimes during lunch, telling me, do you know about the coming Antichrist? Do you know about the tribulation period? Do you know anything about the rapture? The what? Yes, the mark of the beast, 666. No! And he'd show me these big, giant pamphlets that had all these charts and what was going to happen in the future, all written out. And every prophecy so far has been fulfilled 100%. Unlike Nostradamus and Gene Dixon and the psychics, etc. This is what drew me to Christ, because my friend told me about it, and after I got saved, he took me to the Christian bookstore and I bought all kinds of books on Bible prophecy. I still have them. But the question is, what is this mark of the beast? Now, there are some people that believe in the first century, during the times of Caesar Nero, there was some kind of mark or tattoo that people got, and that Caesar Nero was the Antichrist. Well, I've explained to you the last couple of weeks, and we put a handout back there that went into much greater detail, that is impossible. This is not even up for debate. that Nero was not the Antichrist, and that nobody walked around with the number 666 in all of history. I'm open for correction. I'm open for facts. I don't know everything. If anybody wants to show me people walked around at any time with a mark on their right hand or forehead and it came out to 666, I'd be glad to look at it. I'm always open. But now when we come to the Antichrist and the false prophet, we find in Revelation chapter 13 of a coming one world global economy. It's going to happen. How do we know? Not because Jack Van Impe used to teach it before he died. Not because Hal Lindsey teaches it. It's because the Bible teaches it in the last few verses of Revelation chapter 13. So we start with verse 16. He also caused, and that word caused means required or forced, everyone, small, listen to the detail, how God, the Holy Spirit, picked every one of these words. Everyone, small and great, rich and poor, free and slave, to receive a mark on his right hand or on his forehead, so that no one could buy or sell unless he had the mark, which is the name of the beast or the number of his name. This calls for wisdom. The text goes on. If anyone has insight, let him calculate the number of the beast, for it is a man's number. Or the number of a man, you could phrase it either way, and his number is 666. So we know that the Antichrist is a human being that isn't here yet. Kenneth Wuest, Greek scholar and professor, has his own translation of the New Testament. I've read it numerous times. Says, and he causes all, those who are lowly in station and those who are great, those who are wealthy, those who are poverty-stricken, those who are freemen and those who are slaves, to be given a mark of identification upon their hand, the right one, or upon their forehead, to the end that no one should be able to buy or sell except he has the mark of identification, consisting of the name of this wild beast or the number which stands for his name. So what is the mark? It's a mark of identification. All you have to remember is any of the old westerns on TV or anything you know about cattle and Texans. They would put the branding iron on the side of the cattle, and that would let people know who owned that particular animal. So it's more like a brand or a mark of identification. Now, when I first got saved back in the early 70s, there were books that were written in the 70s and early 80s that said that the UPC, the Universal Product Code, which is still on products today, unbeknown to most people, this is what the Christian book said, unbeknown to everyone, that each one of those bars, you notice that some are slim, some are thick, there's two thin ones, there's two thick ones, there's a thick one on the left and a thin one on the right, all variations. We find out, and I went to a secular non-Christian website back in the day, about the UPC code, and I still have it in my file, that each different bar stands for a different number. And this Christian author in their book and others show that two thin lines are a 6 in this product code. And unbeknown, every 10-digit UPC code has 2 thin bars to the beginning, 2 thin bars in the middle, and 2 thin bars at the end. You know what I did when I found that out? I opened almost every product in my bathroom. I got out Ajax cleanser, I got out toilet paper, I got out Kleenex, went in the kitchen, I'm checking dishwasher fluid, and I'm looking at all the UPC codes. And you know what? Every one of them, I was stunned, had this 2 thin lines, 2 thin lines, 2 thin lines. Well, the Christian book said those are 6s. I find out from outside Christian sources they are 6s. But is this the hidden code, the mark of the beast that he's going to use in the future? Are people going to get a universal product code that's going to have 3 6s in it somewhere on the person's forehead, and you make a purchase, you go into the store, they run the little light on your head, and it gets charged to your credit card? Is that the way it's going to be? Are the UPC codes actually going to be seen? Back in the 80s, I went to an amusement park. I can't think of the name offhand. Where there was an amusement park in the middle and there were department stores all surrounding it. No, here in Illinois. And we went in through the department stores and into the amusement park, which was the main purpose we were going. And they said, let us stamp you. And I said, well, why do you want to stamp me for if I pay you money? Well, in case you leave the park and you want to come back in, you don't have to pay. And that's a normal practice today. So I said, stick out your hand, and they put a stamp on there, and they stamped the next person and the next person. About 6 of us. I walked into the amusement park, and I looked to see what the mark was. Now, when I used to race out at the drag strip, they would take an ink pad, and they put like a letter D on your hand. And then you could come out of the pit area, go into the regular area, and back and forth without paying any extra money. But it was an ink stamp. This person went like this, and I walked about 5 steps, and I looked, and there was nothing there. And I went back, ma'am, excuse me, it didn't take. You know what she said? Yes, it did, sir. It's invisible. Then you come back and they put the light on it. And I went, wow. And then right away, I froze. And I said, whoa, could this be similar to the mark of the beast? Because I'm sure people aren't going to walk around with a tattoo on their head or their hand. That would be kind of weird looking, wouldn't it? So I'm thinking, hey, some kind of mark that's read with an ultraviolet light, something that's not normally visible, but it's there. So back in the 70s and 80s, I'm going, wow, this is fantastic. And this kept my spark alive as far as prophecy goes, because the Bible doesn't specify exactly what this mark is. In 1943, Jewish citizens were tattooed and tracked by the Nazis. The mark actually was a tattoo. During the tribulation, another mark will be given by an evil authority. What will that mark be? Will that be some kind of an electronic tattoo? Or is it going to be a microchip that would be placed under your skin? It's called a chip implant. The size of the chip is about the size of a piece of grain of rice. Some are that small. And it's inserted in your hand with a needle, just like you were getting a shot. So there's your grain of rice. There's your chip implant. And this chip can be used for whatever you program it to be. You can program it for financial things. They're talking about chipping Alzheimer's or dementia people so they can be tracked. If they ever walk out and get lost somewhere, they get a tracking device. They can track where the person is. Some items are chipped from your department store. It's called an RFID, radio frequency identification. And this way, if you walk towards the door, you hear what? Beep, 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 beep. So this technology here is really advanced. Here's Business Week magazine about rewiring your body. Here's a woman paying for her meal at a cafe using a contactless payment chip implanted in her hand. Oh, this is fun. Well, you know what I've done over the years since 1970? I collect articles, read books, magazines, pictures, and I get a manila folder. And I title it Revelation 13 or Mark of the Beast, and then if I get anything that I think is really interesting, I stick it in that folder. I now have 5 folders in a giant plastic bag titled all different things. Mark of the Beast, the Wound of the Beast that we talked about. And I just pulled this out. I went downstairs where I keep all my files. And here is an ad in a business magazine with the UPC code on his forehead. And what's the article say? Look who's behind our bars. Standard Register. This is from a magazine. I pulled that out. Let me go back and check your memory. Remember when you were in school, you had the Senior Scholastic magazine?
Yeah.
Senior Scholastic. Here's the cover of one of their magazines with numbers on people's foreheads. They're not UPC, but they're numbers on their foreheads. Omni magazine, the future of money. This whole article talks about a one world economy. Secular magazine from decades ago. So what is going on here? And is this going to be the mark of the beast? Well, let me show you a short clip from Ray Comfort, Superior Ministry. I'm going to consider supporting them monthly starting in January. Well, first of all, let me show you this one about a global bank from a secular TV show. This is not a Christian guy.
Let's talk about what's going on at the moment. Stephen Gallo is the head of market analysis from Snyder Foreign Exchange. He'll be with us for the full hour. Also, Charlie Morris, head of absolute return from HSBC. Global Asset Management is with us. Get your email questions in if you have any for the gentleman. It's worldwide@cnbc.com. That's the address, worldwide@cnbc.com. Stephen, you came into the studio and you said, I love the euro. Everybody hates the euro, but I love it.
Yeah.
Explain.
Well, I think as far as monetary events go, certainly the advent of the single currency is probably the most important and most significant, and I think also most telling in terms of where I think we're headed globally on a monetary basis over the course of the next 10 or 15 years. Clearly, one of the things that brought us into this crisis was an overexpansion of the money supply on a global basis, and I think that over the course of the next couple of decades, central banks are going to need to pay more attention to what's going on with the global money supply rather than the money supply just in their own borders. And that might call into question the need for some kind of a global central bank or a global central bank that's united by central banks for bigger monetary areas underneath that global central bank. So yeah, I think that the euro is certainly forward-looking. I don't buy into what these Eurosceptics say. That's my basic view.
And is that regardless of views on Eastern European markets at the moment and Eastern European banks?
It is. I mean, over the longer term. I mean, there's no question about it. The euro is getting hit now because of the Central and Eastern European problems. Clearly, in the short term, euro weakness is probably one of the trends that will stay with us for a little while, depending how long it takes for the dollar to pull back, because I think that's coming as well. But yeah, irregardless of the challenges that are facing the single currency over the short term, I think the euro is here to stay. And I think without the euro, we would be faced with a number of severe crises scattered throughout Europe right now. With some.
Okay, so we have a general idea here about discussions of a global bank. We have a X-ray, if that's what you want to call it, where the chip is in the person's hands. You see, can you see it?
Yeah.
Dr. Mark Hitchcock, though, is going to caution us about putting too much emphasis on this modern technology as far of it. But before we get to him, I have to show you.
There are many
Comfort.
There are many biblical prophecies that prove beyond any doubt that the Bible is the inspired word of God. Among these many prophecies are 2 verses in the book of Revelation, commonly referred to as the mark of the beast.
And the growing problems for customers who had their credit card information stolen while shopping at Target.
Another major retailer will be the victim of a cyber attack.
Michaels says about 2.6 million cards may have been affected.
Marriott says hackers managed to access the personal data of 500 million of its hotel guests.
MasterCard and Visa revealed today that customer data have been stolen.
Today, Barnes & Noble announced it has been the victim of a massive, sophisticated scheme targeting credit and debit cards.
Capital One suffering a massive hack attack involving 100 million customers.
Credit card fraud is now a $16 billion a year problem in the US alone.
Sweden set to become the world's first cashless society. I'm here to meet some of the thousands of people in the country who are adapting their own bodies. Hannah's getting an electronic chip implanted into her hand.
This is the first American company to ever try this. 1 week from today, many of the employees, including the CEO, will voluntarily have the microchips implanted into their bodies.
No keys or access cards, difficult to steal and copy.
You can buy your groceries with it. Right, like an Apple Pay or something.
I can't believe you just paid with this pen. Like, you just literally put your hand up and you're good to go. Like, that's crazy.
You will be chipped. It's just a matter of time.
Back in 2004, the Manchurian Candidate suggested a future where humans are chipped and controlled. We have been warned.
He causes all, both small and great, rich and poor, free and slave, to receive a mark on their right hand or on their foreheads, and that no one may buy or sell except one who has the mark or the name of the beast or the number of his name.
He foresees chips implanted not only in hands but in heads too.
Neuralink, which focuses on the goal of implanting chips into human brains.
And Elon Musk hopes to have the brain implant inside a patient's head by late next year.
The second prophecy to consider is that the Bible also said 2,000 years ago that the gospel will be preached to all nations. Matthew 24:14 said, "And this gospel of the kingdom shall be preached in all the world for a witness unto all nations, and then shall the end come." Please take the claims of the gospel seriously. Your precious life depends on it. Is the gospel being preached recently in Southern California?
Now here's the company that asked you to be chipped for free. They will do it for you.
This next story we have for you is kind of wild. You might call it microchip commitment.
A young man by the name of Emil Brastra and Jennifer Tomlin, they are dating, have total access to each other's homes, cars, and computers. And they have that access by way of matching electronic microchips that are implanted under their skin. They're joining us this morning to make you understand all of this, or try to make me understand all of it. They're joining us from Vancouver, Canada, and I appreciate your being with us. Before we get to this, what this actual chip looks like, Emil, I want you to give me some demonstration. We have some videotape here of what you can do with this. For instance, I understand you can unlock your car door and open the door without ever putting a key in it.
Yeah, actually, I can, just walk up to the car, present my hand to the sensor, which is just in the windshield of the car. It reads the chip ID and says, okay, this is Emil, and then unlocks the car and disarms the alarm.
And you can do the same thing with your front door?
Yeah, then I can come right in, and there's a little sensor on the door. I place my hand up next to it, it reads my ID, and unlocks the deadbolt.
And you can also, I understand you folks are sitting in front of a computer, you can also turn on your computer this way?
Yeah, I can log in, so it authenticates me.
Okay. Let me ask a question. Why?
Well, basically I started out with a large key ring. I had a lot of clients that were, they would give me their facility key, and I had like a jailer's key ring. So I was just looking for an easy way, cheap and easy way to get into, the couple of areas of my life that I always need to get into, which is, car, front door, office door, and computer.
So you meet this guy, Jennifer, and you start dating, and he tells you what he's done, and he suggests maybe you do the same thing, and you think, are you nuts?
Exactly. He got this done about a year ago, and I really couldn't understand why. I was quite concerned with the health risks. I thought it might break his hand or something like that, and I also thought maybe he could get tracked, which scared me. That turns out it wasn't true. So,
can you?
He wrote his book, and then after about a year seeing all the cool projects, I decided to do it myself.
Now, can you see this little thing implanted in your skin?
Yeah, you can a little bit. You can kind of see it just underneath the skin there. It's rare. I mean, some people would get them done, you can't see it.
It looks just like a tiny little bump.
Yeah, just a little bump.
Do you have one of the chips there, Jennifer? Oh, yeah, right. Can we see it now? Yeah, it's what, about a quarter of an inch, half an inch long?
Yeah, it's about half an inch.
How many
cylinder there?
How many people have done this?
Since doing it in March, there's been a small community around the world that have cropped up. I guess anywhere between 30 and 50 people.
And what are the future applications of this? I mean, I presume it'll be able to do more things than just open your car door or your front door or log onto your computer.
Yeah, there's the common theme is access control, but some people are matching profiles to it. So you get in your front door, but then like a home automation system knows that it's you and sets lighting and music and that kind of preference.
And it's just, is it inserted under your skin with a needle?
Yeah, the left hand was done with a scalpel actually, and it was just placed under by a cosmetic surgeon. Right hand was done with the same needle injector that's used on pets actually.
So Jennifer, he can open your front door and you can open his front door, and the same thing with cars and computers. What happens if the two of you break up?
Well, actually, a lot of people ask that. The thing is, I really like the projects for my own purposes. He likes it for his own purpose. If we wanted to, we could take each other's numbers out of each other's systems, so in that way it'd be really easy. But we both find function in it right now. So.
This is something for the future. I can say, how does a couple commit to one another? Well, I'll put you on my front door, you're my microchip. I suppose there will be a lot of future applications. Maybe we'll all have one of these under our skins in time. We played the song, I've Got You Under My Skin, as we got into this, and I suppose that song applies literally here. All right, thanks for joining us, Abel, Jennifer, explaining what you guys are doing. I don't know what your grandparents think of this, but it's a brave new world. It is now 47 minutes after the hour.
Elon Musk is working on a brain chip implant for years. And it's supposed to have some good qualities to help people battle depression, people that have suicidal thoughts can be reprogrammed. It can help you with a number of psychological disorders. People are going to go, why not? Better than have my son die early. Now, as we use all of these things, global bank, chips, money transactions electronically. We do have a word of caution from our good friend Dr. Mark Hitchcock, a prophecy expert.
We will receive them. Well, that's exactly what Hebrew when you're writing to a Greek-speaking audience. Also, for the preterists to make this work, they have to use a name and a title. They have to use Nero and Caesar. So not just his name, but they have to add the title Caesar, where it says in the text, that's the number of his name. So they have to kind of move things around a little bit, but it is true that Nero and Caesar equals 666. So why would we say that this doesn't apply to Nero? Well, let me just mention a couple of things here. One is the early church consistently applied Revelation 13 to a future final Antichrist. Irenaeus did, Andreas, Primasius, Victorinus wrote the first commentary, the oldest one that we have. These men all saw this as being a future person. But it was so clear that it was Nero, why didn't people nearest to the time see that connection? To me, that's a real problem. Secondly, Nero didn't have a second beast that's described here in verses 11 through 18 that was promoting him like this person here. What they'll say, preterists, they'll say, well, there was a man named Gessius Florus. He was the Roman governor or procurator of Judea under Nero, and that he was this beast out of the earth. Well, the problem is Gessius Florus never did any of the things that says this beast out of the earth does. So they're just kind of, to me, again, it's grasping at straws. Gessius Florus, if he'd done anything close to what is described here, Josephus would have recorded these astounding events, I think, for us. Thirdly, and this is the most devastating thing to the Nero view, is that preterists take the reference to 666 as the value, the gematria of those who dwell in it to worship, referring to the fact that this world ruler, who is the epitome of this empire, is actually going to die and come back to life. So that raises some big problems. Can Satan bring somebody back to life? Well, the problem is when it talks here about the Antichrist receiving a fatal wound, and it talks later here about him being slain, it's the same word used of Jesus being slain back in Revelation chapter 5. So it says Jesus is slain, it says he's slain. It's the same word. He dies and comes back to life. And it was open and the person crawls out of the coffin. And it was given to him to make war with the saints. 6 times it was given to him. In other words, if anyone is destined for captivity and a false spirit. Now, this beast, very likely, this second beast, this false prophet, will be a Gentile as well. But notice how he's described here. It says he has 2 horns like a lamb, and he spoke like a dragon. So we have this terrible trio of the tribulation, Satan and the Antichrist and this false prophet. And notice his deceptive appearance. He has 2 horns like a lamb, so he looks kind of mild like a lamb, but he speaks like a dragon. And he exercises all the authority of the first beast in his presence. And he makes the earth and those who dwell in it to worship the first beast whose fatal wound was healed. So he has a deceptive appearance, he has a devilish authority, and he has a deadly activity. That is, he's going to come and cause people on the earth to worship the first beast. He's going to be kind of like the propaganda minister for this world ruler, to cause people on the earth to worship him. Kind of for sake of time, let me just kind of sign off here, and I've got an overhead for you to see on this, or a slide. Here are 10 identifying features of the false prophet here in Revelation 13. He rises out of the earth. Again, I think that pictures just his earthiness. He's not spiritual. He's just totally from the earth. He controls religious affairs. He's the one that causes people to worship the first beast. He's motivated by Satan. He promotes worship of the first beast. He performs signs and wonders. Again, this is going to be part of the delusion. He's going to make fire come down out of heaven. The same thing that Elijah did. He deceives those who dwell on the earth, and signs are given to him to perform. He deceives the world. He empowers the image of the beast. He actually makes an image of the Antichrist, a statue, and that image is animated and speaks. And I don't think that's just going to be some kind of a trick or a sleight of hand, because people today are pretty sophisticated. They'd figure that out pretty fast. Again, part of this delusion is going to be an image that's going to speak. He kills all who refuse to worship the Antichrist or the beast. He controls all economic commerce. You can't buy or sell without this mark. He controls the mark of the beast. So he's going to be the henchman or the lieutenant or the propagandist who's going to work alongside this first beast. Well, one of the main things he's going to do is institute this mark of the beast. Down in verse 16. And he causes all, the small and the great, the rich and the poor, the freemen and the slaves, to be given a mark on the right hand or on their forehead. And he provides no one can buy or sell except the one who has the mark, either the name of the beast or the number of his name. Here is wisdom. Let him who has understanding calculate the number of the beast, for the number is that of a man, and his number is 666. So people are going to have to take this mark, and the word there in Greek is charagma. It's used of a tattoo or of an etching. You have to take it upon the right hand or upon the forehead. And ultimately, this mark of the beast will be a pledge of allegiance to the Antichrist. In other words, you're going to take his mark upon you. And I believe this mark is the numerical value of his name. Because it says, it's the number of a man, it's the number of his name. Now, some think that 666 is just symbolic of falling short of God's glory. That's the number of man. In other words, perfection would be 777. But God is telling him, no, you're not perfect. You're not 777. You're 666. You're just a man, even though you proclaim to be God and have the world worship you. But the way I understand this is, in ancient language, in Hebrew and Greek, the letters of the alphabet have numerical value. So you can take someone's name and take the numerical value of those letters and add that up, and you get a numerical value for their name. And I think this Antichrist, whoever this person is when he shows up on the scene, his name will equal 666. Now that doesn't mean that we go out now trying to figure out who the Antichrist is and counting up the numbers of people's names. I don't think the Antichrist will be on the world scene until after the rapture. We don't want to jump the gun. I always tell people, if you ever figure out who the Antichrist is, I've got bad news for you. You've been left behind. You don't want to know who he is. We're looking for Christ, not the Antichrist. It's going to be when the restrainer is removed that this Antichrist is able to come on the world scene. So his name is going to equal 666. People are going to take that as a pledge of allegiance. In other words, when you take his name on your right hand or forehead, you're taking his name on you. You're giving your loyalty to him. There's going to be, unlike any time in human history, a clear-cut choice for people. Will they take Christ or will they take Antichrist? It's going to be that clear. And if people refuse to take Antichrist, they're not going to be able to buy or sell. So his motivation is going to be very simple. Worship me or starve. Many people, of course, will take this mark of the beast. So it's going to be the tribulation trademark or your passport to be engaged in commerce in the end time. It's a pledge of allegiance to the Antichrist. Let me just close here by giving quickly just 10 keys to understanding the mark of the beast. Let me mention these quickly. The mark is future, not past. It's not some past thing, it's future. It's a literal, visible brand, mark, or tattoo. The word here, upon the right hand of the forehead, means upon it. It's not going to be some chip under the skin or something that's upon it. It's going to be visible for people to be able to see. It'll be placed upon the right hand or forehead of people during the tribulation. It will be given as a sign of devotion to the Antichrist and as a passport to engage in commerce. The mark will be the number 666, which is the numerical value of the Antichrist's name. Number 6, believers during the tribulation will be able to calculate the number and identify the Antichrist. Again, we don't need to be doing that now, but people in that time will be able to do that. Number 7, those who take the mark, I believe, will be eternally doomed. We'll see that next time we get to chapter 14. Once you take that mark, and you've made that choice, the die is cast. Number 8, before the rapture, this is critical, no one should attempt to identify the Antichrist or his mark or the number 666. I get things people write to me all the time. They figured out who the Antichrist is and they know these things. That's jumping the gun. We're We're not to try to do that now in this current age. Number 9, while current technology and methods of identifying and locating people strikingly foreshadow the ability of the Antichrist to control the world, no specific modern technology will be employed or should be identified as the mark of the beast. No one can say what technology will be employed to fulfill this prophecy, but what we see today makes such a system not only possible but probable. So what I'm saying is, don't go out there and try to figure out some technology out there that is going to be used for this. We can be assured the Antichrist will use whatever technology is at his disposal. He can put chips in people to identify where they are and control the world. He's going to do a lot of things to dominate the world because people can't buy or sell without this mark. So he's going to have iron-fisted economic, political, and religious control. But we shouldn't be trying to identify certain kinds of technology today as the mark of the beast or things like that. But I think we can rest assured he will use whatever he can to exercise his power. And then finally, number 10, I would say this. In spite of its association with evil, 666 will be received by those who willfully reject Christ during the tribulation. A lot of people say, well, I'd never take that. I mean, I've heard of that number before. Have you ever wondered how's the Antichrist going to get people to take that number? I mean, even people who don't know anything about the Bible know about that. Well, it could be the Antichrist who's just so arrogant that he takes this number and forces people to take it, or again, it's just part of the delusion that's going to be present on the earth during the end times. But the globalism we see in our world today points toward this, doesn't it? We see the nations of the world coming together. People are looking for some great Savior to come and bring peace and bring economic prosperity to the earth. We see the world economy coming more and more together. You go back to Revelation chapter 6, when the world economy collapses there and you have all this hyperinflation, people are going to come and look for somebody to bring answers. So we see in the globalism in our world today, I think, a setting of the stage for the kinds of conditions that are spoken of here in Revelation chapter 13. We don't know how much longer it will be until these events come to pass, but the things we see in our world today, to me, strikingly foreshadow what's stated for us here in this prophecy. We'll pick up next time in...
So he's emphasizing we don't know exactly how the Antichrist is going to use modern technology, just like in the 70s, we had the UPC code, and that went out of favor. And then we got all the chips now, and then maybe tribulation don't start for 20 more years, and we got a new technology that it hasn't been revealed yet. So we don't get too specific, but we have some warnings about those who do get the mark. Revelation says, then another angel, a third one, following them, saying with a loud voice, if anyone worships the beast and his image, and receives a mark on his forehead or on his hand, he also will drink of the wine of the wrath of God, which is mixed in full strength in the cup of his anger. And he will be tormented with fire and brimstone in the presence of the holy angels and in the presence of the Lamb. And the smoke of their torment goes up forever and ever. They have no rest day or night, those who worship the beast and his image, and whoever receives the mark of his name. You will be eternally punished in hell if you reject Jesus Christ and receive the mark of the beast. Now, I'd like you to notice, every time we see the mark of the beast, it's going to be tied with worshiping the beast and his image. See that? Those who worship the beast and his image, and whoever receives the mark of his name. So you're going to really belong. Here's a sale. Here's a mark down I found. 666 is marked down. The mark down of the beast is down to 333. Little humor here. Revelation chapter 16. The Apostle John said, I heard a loud voice from the temple saying to the 7 angels pour the 7 bowls of God's anger over the earth. The first angel poured his bowl over the earth. Horrible, painful sores appeared on the people who did what? Who had the mark of the beast and who worshipped his image. Zechariah 14. God says, I will gather all the nations to Jerusalem to fight against it. The city will be captured, the houses ransacked, the women raped. Half of the city will go into exile, but the rest of the people will not be taken from the city. Then the Lord will go forth and fight against those nations as when he fights on the day of battle. This is called the Battle of Armageddon at the end of the 7-year tribulation period. Then, after Christ comes down out of heaven, then the lawless one will be revealed, whom the Lord will slay with the breath of his mouth and bring to an end by the appearance of his coming. This Antichrist is going to be destroyed at the second coming of Christ. This is another proof that it can't be Caesar Nero or anybody else prior to the second coming. This person is going to be alive at the end of the 7-year tribulation period. And then what happens? Then the beast was captured, and with him the false prophet who worked signs or miracles in his presence, by which he deceived who? Those who received the mark of the beast and those who worshipped his image. These two were cast alive into the lake of fire burning with brimstone. So at the end of the 7 years, Christ comes out of heaven. The church comes with him riding on white horses for the battle of Armageddon at the end, where Jesus is going to destroy millions of people, destroy the evil armies of the earth, and then he's going to come down and establish his earthly kingdom and physically rule and reign from Jerusalem. But what about those people who refuse to get the mark of the beast? John says in chapter 20, then I saw thrones, and people sitting on them had been given the authority to judge. And I saw the souls of those who had been beheaded for their testimony about Jesus and for proclaiming the word of God. They had not worshipped the beast or his statue, nor accepted his mark in their forehead or on their hands. And they all came to life again and reigned with Christ for 1,000 years. A lot of people are still going to be saved during this tribulation period, and they're not going to go along with the program. And if they're caught and arrested, what does it say? They're going to get their heads cut off. Now, back in the day, the books I was reading had the guillotine. People going up to the guillotine. If you remember the prophecy video series called Thief in the Night, Distant Thunder, back in the early 70s, we showed it at the church I was the assistant pastor at in the 80s, and they had the guillotine. We don't need the guillotine. You remember when ISIS was starting to spread all over parts of the world, and they were arresting Christians and they were beheading them? How did they do it? Machete. You don't need a guillotine. We don't need to, see what I mean? How things keep changing all the time. We don't want to be too specific when the Bible's not specific. But it does say they're going to be decapitated. That's clear. If you get caught. And in every sort of evil that deceives those who are perishing. Who are perishing? Who are going to hell? They perish. The Bible tells you why people are going to hell. They perish because they refused to love the truth and be saved. For this reason, God sends them a powerful delusion so that they will believe the lie, in order that they all may be judged who did not believe the truth, but took pleasure in unrighteousness. So all unsaved people are going to perish if they don't come to Christ, not because they were predestined, it's because they refused the love of the truth in order to be saved and took pleasure in their wickedness. So that we believe the next prophetic event is the rapture of the church. 1 Thessalonians 4, for the Lord himself will descend from heaven with a shout, with the voice of an archangel and the trumpet of God, and the dead in Christ will rise first. Then we who are alive, we may not have to see death, and remain will be caught up together with them in the clouds to meet the Lord in the air, and we shall always be with the Lord. Therefore, comfort one another with these words. We are to comfort one another that the rapture is coming. It doesn't say, go out and warn everybody. You're going to see the Antichrist. You're going to be beheaded. You're going to get the wrath. You're going to suffer terrible because of the Antichrist. It doesn't say that. It says comfort one another. That phrase caught up is English. The Greek word there, the original language of the New Testament, harpazo, means to be snatched, to be taken away with great force, to be caught up. Well, where did we get rapture? Well, you guys, the Bible doesn't use the word rapture. You're right, it doesn't. But did you know that the Bible doesn't use the word Trinity either? But that doesn't mean there is no Trinity. If you open up a Latin translation of the Bible, you're going to see the word rapemir, and the verb form is rapturo. It's Latin. Rapture is Latin. Millennium, we believe in the coming millennial kingdom of Christ. That's Latin. Mille means thousand. Annum, annual, means year. Millennium, we believe in the millennium, but it's Latin. So the truth is there, it depends on what language. We believe Christ could come at any moment. Any moment he could come. We call this the imminent return of Christ. If you set a date, like Christ is coming next year in May, automatically we know that that person is wrong. Every person in the last 2,000 years that ever predicted a date for the second coming of Christ, the rapture, the battle of Armageddon, every single person was wrong, including Harold Camping, who predicted the rapture and the end of the world in 2011. So, one of these days, Jesus may hear, son, go get my children. Wouldn't that be great? And the question I leave you with today, more important than anything else, are you ready to meet the Lord in the air? Now, there's one element of this future tribulation period that I haven't gotten to yet, but it's coming. You know when you go to the movie theater, remember to say coming soon, and you had to wait weeks or months, and it got your anticipation? I want to do the same thing. Revelation chapter 17 talks about a coming one world global religion. Who is going to be a part of that one world religion? And is it going to be a good religion? Or is it going to be an evil religion? We will show you that when we get to 17. Meanwhile, I have articles for you on the back pew. Marcia, put those back there. Would you ever consider getting yourself chipped? Amazon is working on the systems where customers pay using their hand, and a graph comparing the first piece and the second piece. All right there for you. All right? They're waiting for you in the back. Let's close with prayer.